Hello, good afternoon, everyone. How are you? You're welcome back to my show, Susanna on the move. Having a conversation with Susanna. I'm your host, Susanna Olatunji Komolafe, and you have the privilege of watching this conversation on LinkedIn, and you can also join us on YouTube. So those are the two platforms today that you can join us. Um, if you're on LinkedIn, please can you share with other people if you're watching us live on LinkedIn, and if you're on YouTube as well, you can also share with other people. Now, don't forget if you're on YouTube to subscribe to the channel. Just click on the subscribe button so that you can always come live when we come live. You can always get a notification that we're live and you can join us. Yeah, we're going to continue our conversation on conscious bias. um I think this is going to be the fourth episode that we're doing, and we stopped on the conversation around the three key aspects of conscious bias. What are the key aspect of conscious bias? And we pointed out that we're going to talk on three different type of that key aspects, which the first one was gender, the second one is race, and the third one is religion. I'm going to kickstart today with race and touch base on that and have start our conversation around that. So let's get into it. Now, I want to say that conscious bias, that this today we're talking about the shift in terms of equality at place of work. There's so many things in terms of ways that we can talk about. We take it step by step, but not to forget, go into the conversation space. Um, you have the opportunity to drop your questions there. And if you want to join me live as well, you can let me know through the comment space, and we can bring you live into the studio. And then we can, in the conversation, you can join us on the conversation. So go into the comment space and please drop your comments, drop your questions as we go along. So um, going back again to the topic for today, unconscious bias, the intentional shift in equity at work. So what is that? And focusing on uh, gender, our gender. So what is conscious bias? Just to remind us again, while the unconscious bias refer to automatic hidden prejudice we all owed, conscious bias is the revolutionary steps. Um, and when I say revolutionary step, it's about us being aware and intentionally choosing to take accountability for our mindsets and how we choose what we choose after becoming aware of our biases. So, what in essence I'm trying to say is that um, it is important that we become conscious bias is all about being aware, taking accountability. Like I said, the word accountability is going to be repetitive throughout this process. So it's about being aware, it's about being taking accountability of our mindsets and how we choose to become aware of our biases. So become aware of your biases. Know that you have this. Take accountability for how your mindsets of how you think and how you control these and how you use it to relate within your own community, at place of work, everywhere you find yourself. So it's a move. It moves us from being passive subjects of our condition to active architecture of inclusion. It's not about just achieving a bias free of states. It's about setting a goal, setting a goal um, that we can act against biases, even and especially when it is uncomfortable. So, what we are saying is that what are you talking about? When we come to talk about conscious bias, these are uncomfortable conversations, but making that decision to engage in those uncomfortable conversation. If you look at the comment space there, I put a question out there. I said, we're going to treat this question, but I'm going to put the question, just read it out again. So when last have you made a conscious choice to interrupt a racial bias in a professional setting? And repeat again, when have you made a conscious choice to interrupt a racial bias in a professional setting? What was the outcome? And I would like you to share your thoughts in the comment space. So, what we're saying is that when have you gone out of your way to do this? And if you've done that, what was the outcome of it? And if you can share that thought with us in the comment space, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube channel, you can do that for us. So the core principles. So let's talk about the core principles: awareness without intention, actions. So again, what are the core principles that each of us need to become relatively aware of? What is this principles that we need to be, the core principles that we need to be aware of as individuals, in our places of work, in our homes, in our community. What are these core principles that has to do with conscious bias? So I said awareness without intentional action is performative. When you become aware without, being intentional, taking an intentional action, it becomes performative. Performative, that is just performing, it's just an act. And that is not where we want to go with things. When we are moving away from the unconscious bias and moving into that space of conscious bias, we don't want this to be about performance. We don't just want it to be about ticking the boxes in the places of work. We want this to be actionable. That when we said accountability, actionable, taking action, accountability and actionable. Um, so conscious bias is where accountability lives. It is the space where accountability lives. It is a place where actionable act lives. Taking action, not performance. Taking action, acting on the things that you're really talking about and doing this. So we're going to talk about some key aspects of these core principles. So let's say conscious bias is a race in a race, is examine race through the lens of conscious bias, require us to move beyond simply acknowledging that racism exists. It is about moving away from that. It demands intentional action in the face of known racial disparities and stereotypes. It does demand that we become intentional. Action in the face of known racial disparities and stereotypes. So, taking action, we talk about accountability and we're talking about being actionable, taking those action. So, this look like one, let's say, conscious advocacy. So, when we say be accountable, when we say take actions, how does that look like in the physical space? How does it look like in a place of work? How does it look like in your homes? How does it look like in a social gathering? When you're in a social gathering, when you're having conversations, how does it look like? Advocacy, conscious advocacy. That's what that means. So, intentionally recommending a colleague of an African descendant for a high visibility project because you recognize systematic barriers have historically exclusive opportunities that definitely within yourself that people of the African descendant, Africans living here, have been intentionally, in those spaces, uh, systematical barriers have been created historically and they've been excluded from such opportunities. For that, those are one of the core principles we want to see. That's one. Again, we talk about conscious amplification, conscious amplifications. Noticing if someone's ideas was overlooked in a meeting, deliberately restraining it while giving credit, to build on. Let's say you have a colleague within in your workplace or in a social gathering, there's a conversation going on. Noticing if someone's idea was overlooked, if somebody's idea is overlooked, or they say something and somebody just block it down in a meeting and deliberately restating for you to take a deliberate action to in stating it's while giving credits. You say it and then you give credit to who said it, to say, oh, for example, just for me to build on what Dele has said. Excellent points there. And I would love us to take note of that point that Dele mentioned, you know, drawing people's attention to it, into, going out of the way to do that. That is you, amplifying for them and giving credit. That's what we mean by conscious amplification. So then we go again to conscious hiring and promotion. When the places of work start consciously choosing to say, we will give a job to someone from that we see that, okay, this community, this person, this gender, these people have been systematically or in a way, taking that conscious step to say auditing processes and instilling on diverse candidate slates, insisting and saying that not as a box ticking, because there's so much box ticking, to say, and then you see these forms that says that, oh, where we employ, they tell you to fill the form to say where you're coming from, and this is just for them to show that they are employing people, so they give you opportunity to do interviews, but you really never get those jobs. You really never get those jobs. So it's all about ticking boxes exercise, but with the conscious intent to disrupt homogeneous network that perpetuates racial equity, that perpetuates it, racial inequity. So the importance of doing that, conscious conversation, choosing to engage in and sustaining difficult dialogues about race, because this is an uncomfortable space when we see such conversation. It's you having the conversation, it makes you uncomfortable. Sometimes we think it makes the people around uncomfortable, and this is what we see that is happening in our society today, in terms of how people finding it hard to have conversations, or people finding it hard to, we're being forced down our throat to eat certain kind of food because some certain kind of people loved it, and then the entire nation is being forced to it. This is where we have to start talking, that being inclusive does not require us not to be able to have this conversation, to say no. Inclusive means everybody has something on the table, not being forced to say, oh, because we're being inclusive now, nobody can eat this kind of thing. Mates, you all have to eat this. You all have to do this. You all have to support this. It's so annoying when we do that and we call it inclusive. That is not inclusive. When you're forcing people to accept a situation, rather than dialoguing, or rather than making it's free for people to choose what they want to do, but just educating us on it, having the opportunity, and people having the opportunity to do what they want to do, but rather than being forced to have to accept or conform to it, or say you have to do that. So choosing to engage in and sustaining difficult dialogue about race, understanding that this discomfort is part of the growth process, rather than avoiding the topic to maintain a false sense of harmony. You know, there's so many conversation around this that needs to be talked about. When we're talking about what is the gender for Christians, they're talking about the race. What is the race of Jesus Christ? And some people believe this, some people believe that, but some people find it difficult to have those conversations, which we should be able to have the conversation. These are difficult conversation, but that is what it means by being inclusive. Being able to have those difficult conversations, understanding that it creates discomfort, and that discomfort is part of the growth, rather than avoiding the topic, because when you talk about it, you can then find a solution to it, to maintain a false sense of harmony. Because why you don't talk about it, we're just maintaining a false sense of harmony. That's what we're doing. So another core principle of this key aspect in terms of is the pitfall of inaction. The pitfall of inaction. So with race, once we are aware of a disparity, once you become aware of it, e.g., like a wages gap, representation in your society, your leadership, your groups, wherever you see it, representative representation in leadership, in action becomes a conscious choice, to uphold the status quos. It becomes something you just have to act on. So conscious bias flips the script. That's what conscious bias is doing. And this is where the concept of this dialogue, this concept of this ideology on conscious bias becomes very key. It's about flipping the scripts, making equitable action the default. Equitable action, making equitable action the default. Conscious choice, conscious choice, and that is what we are talking about, making those conscious choice. So let's talk about, why does this matter to us? Why should it matter to you? Why should it matter to me? Why should that matter to anyone for any reason? Why does this matters? So if you are watching me and you know why it matters, please drop a comment in the comment space. I want to see people dropping comments. I want to see all these people engaging. And like I said, when you make these comments, I address them. So let me see people making comments about it. Why this matter? Why does this matter? So focusing on the conscious bias transformation, that is where I want the focus to be on. Conscious bias transformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And remember, here, when it comes to conscious bias, when we're talking about inclusion, inclusion does not mean isolation. Inclusion does not mean it has to be one way. Inclusion means everybody has to be engaged, and everybody has a place. Nobody can be excluded or isolated because we want to be inclusive. Because being inclusive does not mean you should isolate others. Being inclusive means everyone has a space on the table. Everyone, bringing everybody onto the table. That is what it means. Not saying that some people's light should be dimmed while others shines their lights. Being inclusive means everybody's lights could be shined. I see that there's a comment in the comment space there. I'm coming to trade that comments now. So from the theoretical concept into a daily actionable practice, it empowers every individual to take responsibility for the culture they create, one intentional decision at a time, because we create this culture that we are talking about. Hi, how are you, Stellar? Yes, I can see that. How are you? I'm going to flip up um your greetings here. Good to see you. How are you? You can join the conversation if you like to. If you want to come live, let me know. I can bring you in live if you like to come in. Yes. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I'm just trying to share your links there, your referral link. So I'm sharing some couple of things there. If you like to come in, just let me know. I can bring you in. So the conversation today is on conscious bias. And what's this is a new concept which I'm trying to pioneer the concept of conscious bias. Um, the need for us to move away from unconscious bias and to focus really on conscious bias. It's an ideology that I'm trying to concept that I'm trying to pioneer and bring to light and start having conversation around these difficult conversations that we fail to discuss on how can these help with racism? How can this change the whole idea of racism? We have in the comments there, wherever you're joining us, a link that could allow you to join us in the studio. If this is something you would like to, um, you're welcome to join us. So, yeah. So we're talking about the whole idea of why this matters. Why does it matter? Why does conscious bias transformation? Why does it matter? Why do we have to become intentional? Why do we need to become intentional in the decisions that we are making? Why do we have to become intentional in this? So we said focusing on conscious bias transformation. This is where area where we are focusing on. Why does it matter that we have to focus on these when we talk about diversity, when we talk about equity, and when we're talking about inclusion? From a theoretical concept into a daily actionable practice that we do on a daily basis. It empowers every individual to take responsibility, and that's what we're doing. Taking responsibility. There's another word that is coming out to us. Taking accountability, actionable act. We want you to intentionally become actionable, taking action, not just saying things, but practicalizing it and putting this into action on a daily basis. So these are the words that is coming out to us for the culture that we have created. We create this culture, and because we've created this culture, it is important for us to make decisions with intentionality, going out of our way to make a decision at the time to help and to sustain us. And that is where these conversations are coming in. We want to see you engaging with us through your comments. We want to see what you are thinking. We want you to tell us why you think it matters. Why does this matter? Why do you think the idea of conscious bias transformation should become um, a concept that we embrace? So I've launched this concept and I want us to embrace this concept. When we talk about conscious bias, in terms of we're talking about the key aspects of conscious bias. We said we're going to focus on three areas. First, on gender, which we've spoken about. If you go and watch our previous video, for those that are joining this for the first time, you can see it there. So we're moving on today and we're talking about race and what are the actions that we need to take in order for this to become justifiable, um, and how do we deal with the idea of race? Why does it matters? And that is the question. Why does it matters? Why should we even consider it? Why should we even consider it? Why should that matter to any of us? Should we just pretend that this is not happening in our society? Should we just overlook it? Should we just overlook it and say to ourselves, "Oh, it's not our business. This is not happening in our community. We don't need to worry ourselves about conscious bias in race. We don't have to worry ourselves about it. We don't have to discuss conscious bias in race. It is not a conversation for us to be. So let's discuss this. Let's discuss why it matters. Why is conscious bias, why conscious bias in race? Why does it matter? So let's have the conversation. And this is what we are doing here today, because, and one of the, like I said, I want us to embrace this ideology, this concept, unconscious bias. I want us to embrace it, and I want it to be a conversation on the table. I want us to move beyond the unconscious bias and just focus with intentionality on conscious bias and how we can become accountable. How do we become accountable in this in this space? How do we become accountable in this space? What do we, how do we become accountable within the space of conscious bias? How do we become um actionable? Why does this matter? Let's discuss it. Conscious bias in raised from awareness to intentional equity. From becoming aware and then to intentional equity, from one end to the other. And what that really means in totality is accountability, actionable, taking responsibility, um, and actionable and taking responsibility, be accountable. So the conscious shift we've all had about all we've all had about unconscious bias. We the automatic ingrained association we make about people based on race. But what we are saying is that conscious bias in race is the critical, is often overlooked. So the next step is that what do we consciously do once we become aware? So the moment you become aware of your biases, what are you doing to it? That's what we should be talking about now. What are you doing to it? What step are you conscious and prejudice that you have? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing in your place of work? What are you doing in the church? What are you doing in the community, in your social gathering? What are you doing? Are you asking this question? Or are you just talking about racism? We've talked and talk and talk and talk about this. We talk about the unconscious bias that people have towards us. But what are we consciously doing about the conscious biases? What are we doing about it? What step are we taking? And this is why this is important to myself. This is why it becomes a key conversation that I will love us to engage on. This is why this becomes important. That these conversations become something we talked about. And I'm hoping that as we come to an end today, um, yes, thank you very much, Stella. Uh, it is a very good topic today to discuss, and thank millions, Stella. Thank you very much for your comments. It is critical. I'm going to feature your comments on the live stream. So it's a very good topic, It's an ideology, it's a concept that I'm introducing, and I've started this journey. And people like you, I would really love to see how people like you respond to it and what you think of the concept itself in totality. So, yes, it's a good topic today to discuss. It is about time we talk about what are we doing? What are we really doing in this area? What step are we taking? There's no reason for us to keep talking about it. It is time for us to change the conversation. It is important that we move beyond those conversation. It is high time that we start looking for solutions rather than just talking, because we've done a lot of talk, you know, you know what I mean. We've done a lot of talk. Let us now start acting rather than talking. Let us start acting um, rather than talking. Let us start making conscious decisions. Let us start making conscious decisions. Let us start shifting away from this conversation around around biases. Let's act on it, and especially conscious bias in race. And that is what we focus on today, saying from awareness to intentional equity, a conscious shift. We've all heard about it. So what are we consciously doing once we have become aware? Once we've become aware, what are we consciously doing to deal with the situation? What are we consciously doing to deal with the situation? How are we acting on the situation? Yes, we've had so many things about it. So yes, what are you doing? What are you doing about it? So let us know what you recommend we should do about it. Let us know what step you have taken as an individual with regards to this. What step have you taken? Are you one of those people that is acting? Are you becoming accountable for your actions? Are you one of those people that is becoming accountable for your actions? So let us know what you're doing. Let us know how you're responding to these situation. Um, Tell us why you think it matters. If you believe it matters, tell us why it matters, and do that through the comment space. You have the opportunity to do that through the comment place. So as I leave you today, the question I want us to all talk about is that what do we consciously do since we become aware? Since you become aware of your biases, since you become aware of your biases, yes, what are you doing? Yeah, I try to be far enough in this situation. Yeah, to be fair enough in this situation. Yes, it's good to be fair, but the question, if you one of the things I wanted to do, yeah, totally I am, to go beyond just being fair, because I know these conversations are conversations that are very critical. I understand that this conversation is uncomfortable. Exact, yeah. So yes, Stella, I can see that. So I understand deeply that it is an uncomfortable conversation and to talk about, and that is why we have this question to say, when have you made a conscious choice? When have you made a conscious choice? When have you made a conscious choice to interrupt a racial bias in a professional setting? What are the outcome of that? And you can share your thought with us in the comment space. So there's three things I want you to take away, Stella, that I think really, really will help. Just giving an answer, responding back to that, when you said, um, yeah, you've tried to be fair enough in this situation, is that one, be accountable, take an action, and be responsible. Take responsibility for those actions that you're taking. So be accountable. The moment you become aware, you know, do something actionable. Like you said, you've been doing something already. You're trying to bring this awareness within your own professional space. You're trying to bring it into awareness. That is it. And then taking responsibility for those steps that you're taking, to make this to become something that you integrate into your conversation. You've passed through a situation like that before. Yeah. So regarding racial bias, I did a training last days where the trainers, every single master, he mentioned about my second language. You can see, which is okay. This is what we're saying, because that is what conscious bias is about. That is the difference between a conscious bias and an unconscious bias. Is that people, what you should do in this situation to say, yeah, now that you become aware that I have a second language, now that you've become aware uh, of the situation, that is good. So will you? And then the next step is for to say to him, it is time for you to embrace that, because I have a second language, and that's it. And this is the way I have a second language. That is important for you to know that, and this will always be reflected in everything I do. Yes, you might see it that way, which is also good, because that's ways. But the most important thing is that you have to now see it as his own awareness. That is this is what he's becoming aware of. Is that he's taking responsibility for it. You should make him take responsibility for that. That's now okay. I'm aware that you have a second language. This is who I am. It doesn't matter what I do. My second language is important. So, and it will always be reflected in everything I do. I will love if you can embrace that. Rather than see that as a barrier, embrace it. I think that's what he needs to do. That is what you need to tell him. Rather than seeing it as that. It's about taking